All right, everyone. Well, welcome to our first information session for Oxfam Trailwalker 2022, taking place in Taranaki. As I said, my name's Lizzie. I'm the fundraising events manager here for Oxfam Aotearoa. Also here from the Oxfam Trailwalker team is Vanessa, our marketing and fundraising executive. And after this session, she's ready to provide ongoing support and answer any key questions about training leading up to event weekend. We also have Victoria, our events assistant, who many of you will know as the wonderful woman on the other end of the phone or email when you get in touch with us. So as I said, this information session is all about training and gear that can help you as you prepare for Oxfam Trailwalker. It's a jam-packed hour, so sit tight. Firstly, a bit of housekeeping. I do have to note briefly that this session is going to be recorded and will be posted to Facebook and our website later for those who couldn't make it tonight. As we progress through the session, you may need or want to focus your attention to the speaker. To do this, head to the top right of the screen and turn speaker view on. Question and answers will be at the end, so please stay muted until we reach that section. In the meantime, feel free to pop your questions into the chat box and we'll get to them at the end. Firstly, I want to introduce our guest speakers for the evening. Like most Trailwalker participants, training for the event might seem a bit daunting, but you're not alone. We've teamed up with ultra marathon runner, coach and fitness guru Marie from Go Run Girls to help you and your team achieve your goals and see you cross the finish line. She knows everything about training for long distance run and walks, so we're very lucky to have her here tonight to spread her knowledge and passion for the sport. And secondly, I want to introduce you to Liam from Bivouac Outdoor. He's going to be running over 3 key gear tips, including how to look after your feet, the layering system, and walking poles. So, a quick run over for this evening. I'm up first with a brief Oxfam presentation, running over some FAQs. Coach Marie will be talking all things training, from reading a training plan to what gear you'll need. And Liam from Bivouac Outdoor will be running over 3 gear tips. We'll then go into Q&A, and then we'll conclude the session. All right, let's get straight into it. Firstly, what are you in for? Well, Taranaki's beautiful destination is top of the list. Oxfam Trailwalker 2021 was a huge success in Taranaki, and this year's event will be taking place again in this stunning region. Taranaki has abundant nature and remarkable history, and is exploding with culture, arts, dining, hospitality, alongside unique events like Oxfam Trailwalker, and there's something there for everyone with so much to offer. Secondly, a physical challenge, something we're all up for, whether it's to get fitter, push yourself out of your comfort zone, or to be a great role model for your children. Oxfam Trailwalker is sure to push you to your limits for an incredibly rewarding experience. We hope you're in for a treat. It's time to bond with friends and colleagues. Look forward to getting active and making memories with those you are closest to. Past participants have told us it's a memory they reflect back on often and something their friend group will cherish for a lifetime. And you're also doing your bit to help make the world a better place. With the world in its current state, you're all pitching in and lending a helping hand. When you participate in Oxfam Trailwalker, you'll be not only challenging yourself, but challenging the root causes of injustice that keep people trapped in poverty. So in the Oxfam part of this presentation, I'll be talking about the expectations. So what to expect while you're training, making plans and why it's important, mental and physical well-being, and how to look after yourself leading up to the event. I'll go over a few common FAQs, and then we'll go into training resources. For example, the training guides that we offer and where to get support. So firstly, expectations. Well, first up, don't be too hard on yourselves. Things will change in your plan, and that's okay. Life can get in the way, so make sure you make the most of it when you can and enjoy the process. Train together if you can, because by training together, you get a sense of your team pace instead of just your individual pace. Train on different terrains, test food and drink so you find out what works best for you and your team. Test out socks and which ones you prefer and which ones help you stay blister-free. When you train, you can record and update your online team fundraising page with training photos, stories, and tracks covered. This will also help people who donate to your team page connect with your journey and encourages more people to donate, having seen the hard work that you're putting in. Sharing pictures of your training blisters can be gross, but boy, does it rake in the donations. And it's not a race. I can't stress this enough. Unless you're gunning for a personal best and thinking of running it to compete for first place, this event isn't a race. The point is to work together and finish together. Rushing it could mean injuries, dehydration, or blisters, just to name a few. In your first team meeting, discuss the training approach that you'll do, together and individually to reach your team target. Check when people are available for trainings. Pick the best days and times that suit. Schedule team training sessions and meetings into the calendar. For our office, the staff teams who take part each year put a diary invite in the all office diary on Monday night, right after work, for people to walk together to train. And it also gives other colleagues in the office the chance to join in, catch up, and give them a good morale boost. Talk, and talk some more. Ensure you're being honest with your teammates and keeping up with team updates. This is especially important when the team is training separately in different parts of New Zealand. If you're struggling, then tell your teammates or reach out to us. We've had to counsel a few teams over the years when sometimes what was needed was that honest check-in with each other. Mental health and well-being is an important topic and has been especially important since COVID-19 impacted all of our lives. With Oxfam Trailwalker, it's not just about your physical fitness, so practice training your mind out on training walks. You're out on the trail together for a long time. And I don't know about you, but finding something to talk about for 36 hours can be tough. This means you'll want to keep your mind occupied along the way to avoid boredom. Think about ways you and your team can keep yourselves entertained. This could be things like making up a song along the way, counting things on the trail charades, improv storytelling, telling jokes. And you also don't have to spend all the hours being on with your teammates. Recognize that sometimes you'll need some solo time. And so even if you're walking beside each other, allow yourself some me time and listen to a podcast, audiobook, or your favorite Spotify playlist. Look out for your team members. It's not only a team event in event weekend itself, but also during all of your training. Having something to like a monthly catch up to touch base and talk about training means you can ask questions and ensure that they're okay. It's the perfect time to tell each other how you're actually feeling, walking longer distances each week, and honesty is key. For yourself, ensure you're taking all of the right precautions. For example, bring extra socks on the trail, a first aid kit, and your reusable bottle to stay hydrated. St. John is our first aid provider, and they'll be at every checkpoint to support you should you need it. We have a debrief with them after every event, and when we were sitting down to talk about what happened last year, I counted dozens of times that they helped someone by giving them electrolytes to help keep hydrated. So I'd recommend checking out our line electrolyte drink and introducing electrolytes to your training. Our line is our course drink, and we provide it at every checkpoint. But we do recommend not trying something new on event weekend because it could be a little way before the next Portaloo. And finally, don't push it, especially if you're injured. This one is important because if something hurts, stop walking. Yes, it's important to push through fatigue and build your endurance while training. However, if something hurts and is bothering you out on the trail, it's best to stop, rest, and if it persists, to head to a professional to check it out. So, over the years, we've accrued quite a few commonly asked questions with Oxfam Trailwalker, and obviously Victoria is on the other end of our phone or email to answer any questions that you have. But some of the commonly asked questions that we have each year is how much training is involved. So we believe that most people with the right training and attitude can complete Oxfam Trailwalker. We've narrowed down a few key factors to consider when training, and when you do, think pasta. P, physical. Spend time building endurance and strength through a variety of training walks. Fatigue is one of the biggest obstacles on event weekend. You may want to consider starting a longer training walk after work on a Friday, finishing in the early hours of the morning. Stay with others and stay safe when you're doing this, but it's a good way to push yourself if you're starting a walk already tired. A, attitude. A positive mind frame is the key if the "what have I signed up for" mentality sets in. S, support. Surround yourself with a cheer team of walking mates, support crew, friends, family, and people making donations. T, time. Prepare early. You've signed up, and the next step is just to get out there and walk. And A for accountability. Commit and shout out to your social media network about your Trailwalker journey. PASTA, pasta, which is also good for carb loading. Some of the previous completion times in terms of average how long it takes. Obviously, for the 50 kilometers, you have 18 hours to walk the trail, and for the 100-kilometer trail, you have 36 hours. Most people don't take the kind of maximum amount of time that's allowed. So what is the kind of average completion times? Well, in 2014, a team with an average age of 68 years completed the 100-kilometer event, and in 2017, an 80-year-old participant completed it with younger generations of their family. And the average time that most takes for the 100K is kind of 24 to 26 hours. And for the 50 kilometers, it's around 11 to 13 hours. But don't worry, these are not times that you have to complete your distance in. And quite a few people are nervous that they're not training enough. The key thing we tell people is that it's not about how far you walk, it's about how long you can stay on your feet. The walking is one part. However, standing up for the duration of your chosen distance can often be the most challenging part. Even if you miss some training walks, that's fine. Try to incorporate standing time through your day, such as standing at your desk at work for a couple of hours a day. And as well as being on the other end of a phone call or email, we also have a lot of resources that you can access on our website. One of these are training guides. You'll have access to our free Oxfam Trailwalker training guides based on whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced walker. Those are all featured on our website and are handy for you and your team to use during your journey. But you will also have access to advice from Coach Marie, and she'll be talking to you later about her training guides and support package that many of you might want to take advantage of for that extra helping hand. You have access to the Oxfam Trailwalker community Facebook page to chat to other teams about their preparation and what others recommend. And while we do stay active on that page, your fellow Trailwalkers run the show. There's nothing like receiving training and event weekend tips from past and present participants. It's also a brilliant place to meet a few teams, create a connection, and then meet them on the day. So, I just want to say thank you so much again for signing up to be part of this epic adventure, and at the same time challenging the injustice of poverty. Before I hand you over to Coach Marie, I do want to say a quick thank you to our event partners, because without them, Oxfam Trailwalker just wouldn't be the same. So thank you to New Plymouth District Council and Venture Taranaki, Bivouac Outdoor, and especially Liam, who will be offering gear advice later. We have Outwear and R-Line, Air Vanuatu and Tonkin and Taylor, In Cafe Coffee, Booster Wine Group, and Wireless Nation, who are a key part of our safety systems on event weekend, and we'll be providing free Wi-Fi to everyone at events. And of course, Coach Marie from Go Run Girls. Okay, so on to Coach Marie.
Hello everyone, I'm Coach Marie from Go Run Girls. I'm super excited to be here again. This is my second year of Oxfam Trailwalker. Last year I was very involved and I even got to do the event this year, which was just mind-blowing, and it was something that I'd heard about and but I'd never actually been part of. So to actually get to, coach people for this event and then actually do it was just epic and life-changing. And I saw so many things out there on the course that really did, open my eyes to humanity and just that whole camaraderie of people getting together and doing something for Oxfam was incredible. So hats off to you guys for signing up. Hopefully this is not just a training journey for you, it's actually life-changing, because you can do so much with this training and get some good habits into your life. So congratulations, everyone. Okay, so let's get into it. I've got so much information that I have to get through in this 15-minute block, so I'll do my best, and please do ask me questions at the end. But I'm just going to run through everything that I find is important for your training. What is the good things to focus on, and what's not so good and is probably wasting your time. Okay, so first thing is get a plan. Now that's where I do come in. If anyone is looking for a plan, we have plans for Go Run through Go Run Girls and Go Run Guys. And the great thing is that if you come on the subscription, we give 15% back to your fundraising page. So that's just a little bit about my plans. I also have my own app, which means you can have your plan on your phone. So if you want more information about that, I'm sure Lizzie will stick a link somewhere so people could go and have a look. But the important thing is you get a plan, you know where you're going. Once you've got it, print it out and stick it somewhere that you're going to see it every day, that's going to remind you that you need to get out there and train. It's great accountability to have a plan, and you really want to know where you're going with this, because 50K or 100K, it's a very long way. You've got a lot of hours out there on your legs. You just want to make sure that you're building up safely. So use a plan. And then you need to align it with your personal diary. So what I say to clients is that a training has to work around your life, not the other way around. You know, life has to happen first, get your ducks in a row, and then allow for the training to happen around it. So merging the two is a really important job. So make sure you sit there one night, go through your personal diary and what you need to do, and align them the best that you can. Second thing is the mental side of training. Don't get overwhelmed by the process, right? I mean, as I said before, it's a long way to go. It's very easy to look at a plan and think, how am I ever going to be able to spend 6 hours out there walking, you know, for a few weekends and building up? How's that even going to happen? If we look too far ahead, it means we get overwhelmed and put off, and that makes it even harder to complete your weekly training, right? So just start where you are at now and have use the resources and the tools that you have now. Think about your current fitness level, what resources you have available, any injuries that you've had, any conditions that you've got, and start there. And day by day, tick it off, okay? So definitely do not get overwhelmed by the process. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about your other commitments in life as well. So what things in your week could you possibly change, or maybe you've overcommitted yourself to something that you can pull back on so that you can make more room for that training? Really, it's an important time to, you know, sit down, be realistic about your goal and how much training you can fit in. Because even though a training plan, and even in my training plan, I might have you out there training 4-5 times a week. If that is unrealistic, cut it back to 3. You know, the goal, like Lizzie said, is it's, you know, the time out there on the legs rather than how many Ks that you're doing. So, and that can often put people off too. If you look at a plan and there's just too much to fit in, be realistic about what you're committing to. Okay, so some other key points is that I get asked all the time around coaching. The biggest one is, if I miss a day, will it matter? Do I have to make it up? And the answer is no. I mean, the fact that you've got, 5-6 months of training from now, that's a lot of time out there on your legs. So you won't necessarily have to make up that distance. So if you're sick, if you, you know, have the kids at home and you can't go out for that training session, then by all means, just leave it. Start again on the training plan. Don't try and make it up. If you try and make it up, it can lead to overloading and then injury, and we don't want that, right? So don't make up days, whatever you do. Second thing, if you feel a niggle, if it lasts more than 2 to 3 days, then that's when you really need to go and see a professional. So what I mean by 2 or 3 days is probably 2 or 3 training sessions. If it's still, you know, just there niggling, it's not quite an injury, but it feels like something's wrong, then go and get it checked out. The sooner you get things checked out, then the sooner you can get back to training after you've recovered. Introduce some stretching. We love stretching, don't we? And no one does it. So the important thing is that we look after our body during this time. It's not only the training, it's the stretching, it's the strengthening, it's the sleep, it's, you know, looking after your body with good nutrition and hydration. So think about those elements and what things that you could sharpen up in your life. I know that a lot of people training for walk and run events need to be doing that core work and building a strong foundation so that you can walk for longer. So look at how you can fit in those extra sessions, and it doesn't have to be huge. Again, don't overwhelm yourself. Once you've gone out for your walk, get back into the house, drop down and do a plank for a couple of minutes and then repeat. So it doesn't have to be a full-on strength session that's like, 30 minutes. Just do what you can with what you've got, okay? Right, excuse me, I'm just moving my notes. Chat on social media. So as Lizzie said, they've got a Facebook support group. Just staying connected with other people doing the event might help with that motivation and help to get you out the door. As I said, 6 months is a long time that you've got to be motivated for. So it's important to keep on those lines of communication all the time. Make those Zoom sessions with your team and talk to them about their training. And a big thing I learned, especially this past event, is that it's really good to talk about your weaknesses. So, when I am really tired and fatigued, when I'm doing my training, I personally go really quiet and I go into my little shell and I'm just, so zoned in on getting it done. Some people might look at me and think, oh, wow, she's upset. She doesn't like us. But I let my team members know that. That's how I go. So that when things get hard, and they will get hard out there, that you know each other, you know each other's weaknesses, you know each other's strong points and what we can all bring to our own teams. So, get connecting not only with social media, but with your team members. Join local run groups if you have walk or run groups in the area. If you can, I know it's a bit of a hard one, but enter some local events that you've got going, if you're out of the levels, of course. But just going in these little events that happen locally means that you can practice with your gear, you can practice your mindset, you can practice all that pre-race, those pre-race habits that you need to. So look up events in your local area. Download a tracker app, so make sure that you stay safe out there with your training. Make sure you tell people when you're going out for that extended, longer training session so that you stay safe. Train on all terrain. So with Taranaki this year, because I did it myself, I know about the area, but it really was a mix, wasn't it, Lizzie? It was, you're out there on the road, you're on the beautiful trails, you're on gravel, you're hiking the hills. There's so much out there. So in your training, try and get variation with that. Okay, so my next topic is going to be gear tips. And I'm sure Bivouac will talk about this more in depth, but good walking shoes is definitely top of the list. Go to the professionals, get fitted properly, go to Bivouac, see what they have, but you really want to start off in a good place with your shoes. They're going to take you through the event, so you need to be supported. Don't go cheap on your shoes. Please don't do that. A good head torch, really important, because a lot of the 100Kers, of course, are going to go into the night, making sure that you also practice with that. And take spare batteries. Hydration packs and vests, especially for the 100K, making sure you have a good vest and that you practice with it. In a vest, we can have all our safety kit, our gear, our jackets, food, everything. So invest in one of them. Warm clothing. So merino is definitely a favourite, and I believe Liam's going to talk a bit more about the layering system. Invest in a seam-sealed jacket. So these are jackets that are literally sealed with a bit of plastic down the zip, so that if you get stuck out there for longer, the rain's not going to get in. A buff is a really good idea, and we may need them if we're still in these levels. So a buff is like a little scarf that we can wear over our nose, especially in these levels, but you can wear them as hats and all sorts, and I'm sure I'll do a video to you soon about that. First aid kits, invest in one of them. You can get little first aid kits, I'm sure, from Bivouac as well. But the whole deal is practice, practice, practice with your gear, because you want to be standing at that start line in March confident that you have trialled everything, right down to the undies that you were wearing, because believe me, undies chafe as well. Brings me to the next topic, horrible things that happen in our training, which of course is we want to have anti-chafing products on us. One particular one, which Outwear, who is a sponsor, provide is the Run Guard, which is great, but you can also use Vaselines, chafing powders, tape, and you want to be focusing on the places that create moisture when you're training, under the arms, inner thighs, and around the bra line. But it can be something just like blisters that can really put you off finishing what you're doing. So I saw people last year that definitely suffered out there with blisters. It's a reality, they're going to come, but you can also make yourself a little bit more comfortable with it by applying products. But you've got to do that in your training. And last of all, I have some advice from a lovely, beautiful girl, Janine, who was in my team last year. And she's, I believe, doing it for the 5th time this year in my team. But she's got a few tips. Take a basin to wash your feet. It's such a little tip that you would think, why a basin? But freshness, oh my goodness, is so good when you've been out there for such a long time. So get your crew, if you can, to bring along a basin. Things like a toothbrush, and so that you can scrub your teeth, and that feels amazing. Thermals, always bring spare ones, because if you don't need them, maybe your teammate might need them. A silver foil emergency blanket is a lifesaver, so you should always have one of them anyway. Just keep it in your pack for training. Hiker's wool for blisters. Now, this is a great product, and you can just put it in between the toes or in your shoes to try and prevent that friction from happening. Antihistamines was another one from her. You might get a few reactions when you're out there. You know, we are in the forest, so again, train on that as well. And little snap lock bags as well was another good one for, you know, food that you partially eat and that you want to take with you. Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly do a snapshot of what I've talked about so I can get off, because you've got other people to talk. But one is to get a plan, print it off, stick it where you're going to see it. Don't sweat the small stuff, guys, okay? It's not important. It's a long journey. You want to learn from this journey, but just you're doing something amazing for Oxfam. Make yourself accountable to someone or a group of people by keeping in touch. Practice everything from nutrition to hydration, okay? And make sure that you go on the website and read all the information before you go. You don't want to get stuck or, you know, not knowing where something is, like the toilets, which is super important. So, yeah, that's my advice to you, but it's beautiful to be part of this again. So I hope that was good, and send me any questions.
Marie, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you again for joining us, not only last year for On the Trail, but this year again, signing up to be part of it, and the fact that we can pick your brains and learn from your amazing advice, which we'll be posting through social media and through our emails as well, just to share with everyone. So please do go and check out Coach Marie's training plans and package. Really helpful for a lot of people out there who have the fear in preparation for Oxfam Trailwalker. So thank you. And I suppose now we are moving over to continue the chat about gear to Liam. Liam is from Bivouac Outdoor, and he'll be talking us through the layering system, footwear, and walking poles. So Liam, over to you.
Thanks for that, Lizzie. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep, can indeed.
Oh, great. That's good. I hope everyone's doing well this lockdown. I know I've been running plenty of laps around the block myself. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the more important bits of gear for this event. And I hope that you guys will be able to use the knowledge to get the most out of your walk. I quickly put together a slide this afternoon, actually, just with some basic notes that I'll be running off to give you guys something visual to look at right in my face. I thought that might be helpful. I'll just get that booted up here now. How's that looking?
Looking good.
Great. Cool. So to start off with, we're going to be talking about feet. So your feet are a pretty common thing to have fail on you during endurance events. So you want to be paying a lot of attention to them. So shoes is a good place to start. Avoid using brand new shoes if you can help it. Use shoes that you've done some training in, as you need to know that they're comfortable and that they work. So tried and true is the saying, really. You want to use something that you've probably done, at least 100 Ks in, I'd say. Yeah, just avoid using brand new shoes. If you get brand new shoes, make sure that you do some miles in them during your training. So lightweight versus durability. Lightweight shoes are a big growing trend at the moment. You move faster in them. They weigh less on your feet, so they're easier to walk in. There is some downsides to lightweight shoes, which is that they will tend to lack durability compared to heavier, kind of more durable shoes. So shoes with like a rand on them. So you will have to replace lightweight shoes more often, which is fine. Some people prefer to do that. And you can definitely move a little bit quicker, so there's bonuses there. Some questions that often get asked are, should I use my tramping boots? Ideally, you'd want to use a lighter shoe, but if you're more comfortable in a tramping boot and you know that you can walk further in them, choose those. But perhaps try different styles of shoes in your training. Maybe try something that's a little bit lighter in your training and see if that works for you as well. So yeah, grip. So obviously grip is going to be super important. The terrain can vary quite a lot. So you'll have gravel and mud. You want to avoid taking slips and falls because you'll get injured. So grip is really good. Cushion is going to be your major friend during the event. There's a lot of small rocks and pebbles, kind of gravelly trail, which will beat up your feet and kind of tends to make your feet feel bruised over time. And that's the kind of feeling that tends to take people out of a walk, other than things like blisters. So yeah, making sure you've got a lot of cushion is important. Try to make them suit the shoes suitable to the terrain. If the terrain's maybe on a road, you might want to bring multiple pairs of shoes. So you might have a pair that you can wear on the road, and then you might have a pair that you can wear on some of the rougher terrain, which might have a little more cushion or a lot more grip, depending on the weather as well. Maybe the weather's quite wet, so it could be quite slippery. So yeah, it's always ideal to have a backup pair of shoes, just in case one pair fails, or maybe your shoes are saturated from rain or something like that. And socks. Change your socks frequently. So try to change your socks every checkpoint. When you change your socks, it can actually feel quite good. It can feel almost like you're starting fresh. And it tends to get rid of the salts and grit that can build up in your socks. So different options are wool and synthetic. Avoid cotton, because cotton is it's not very good at temperature control and things like that, and can cause blisters a bit more easily. So wool versus synthetic. Wool tends to be a little bit less smelly because it's antimicrobial, and it does retain its warmth quite well when it's wet, about 80% of its warmth when it's wet. However, it does tend to hold on to moisture a lot longer, so you might find if you get really wet feet in a wool sock, then it might be a bit heavier. Synthetic socks also keep your feet warm when they're wet, with the added bonus of them smelling terrible. They tend to just stink. So if you're someone that's a little bit more conscious about having smelly feet, then yeah, go with the wool socks. I tend to go with wool socks myself, but you will get a little bit more moisture control with a synthetic sock, like a polyester nylon blend of a sock. Your shoes tend to trap a lot of moisture inside them anyway, so the moisture doesn't escape super well. The synthetic socks will help if you've got ventilation and things in your shoe, but yeah, not as much as, say, on your body. And clean your feet. Marie mentioned this before. You want to make sure that you're cleaning your feet when you can. Sometimes you won't have time at a checkpoint. But cleaning your feet, again, just removes the salt and grit and makes your feet feel really, really fresh. It gives your feet like a breath of fresh air, basically. And again, with cushion, I actually forgot to mention cushion. So different socks have different blends of cushion. I know Icebreaker has lightweight, midweight, and heavyweight, and then they have a Mountaineer thickness, which is super, super thick. You probably don't want to go with a super, super thick sock unless you're someone that's really conscious about having a lot of cushion. It's best to go with maybe like a medium thickness. It's going to give you a lot of cushion as well as your shoe, so that's quite helpful. So some bivouac options we have there. Icebreaker, obviously, and Thorlo and Lorpin socks here. And we also have hiker's wool, which Marie mentioned. That's really, really handy to pop inside your sock to stop you getting blisters. And there was some bivouac options for shoes here as well. So we've got Innovates. The Rocklight series is really, really grippy. The Terra Ultras and the Trail Talons. The Terra Ultras have been a popular shoe for people doing really long endurance-based walks. And the Trail Talon's a good mix between like a road and a trail shoe. The Scarpas tend to be slightly more durable, but they're a heavier shoe. And they're very similar, they have good grip. And then we have some options here. So we've got Scarpa, Merrill, and Keen, which all do walking shoes that are a little bit heavier, a bit more durable. Walking poles. So this segues really well into walking poles because walking poles help a lot to keep your feet from being sore. So they help you walk for longer. How do they help you walk for longer? So walking poles tend to reduce a lot of the strain on your feet. They tend to take a lot of load off your feet. You kind of spread the load over all four limbs rather than having all the load on your feet. I know of a few staff members that felt they could have finished Oxfam if they had a pair of walking poles, and they rated them really highly. So some stats out there say roughly 20% of the load is taken off your feet, but it's pretty hard to quantify. They help a lot with the variations in elevation or terrain. So if you're going up some steeper terrain, you can post that pole up a little bit further ahead of you and you can give it a good pull, and that'll help you climb kind of with your hands as well as your feet. And going downhill as well, you can post them out and it takes a lot of the strain off your knees. I know for myself, I have a slightly dodgy right knee. So yeah, it helps a lot with just reducing the pounding on my knees. And if you're going across rougher terrain, so rockier sort of stuff or terrain that's quite muddy or slippery, that you might have to take cautiously, then you can post the poles out and give you a lot more stability, which is really, really handy. They do make you move a little bit quicker over the rough terrain as well, simply because if you're posting your poles out and things like that, you won't have to take as much time picking your way through the terrain. So types of walking poles, there's two main types, which is a trifold pole. That's what you see in this image here. It's my personal FLZ pole or carbon Z pole from Black Diamond. And the other type is the telescopic pole. So the telescopic poles have a lever latch on the side, and you can slide the poles in and out. Those poles tend to be quite durable because you can sometimes replace the sections. But the trifolds are a lot more compact. So if you're maybe putting the pole inside your pack, or putting it away for a little bit and you don't want to carry it with you, then the trifolds can be a little bit easier to store. I'd imagine if you're using walking poles during Oxfam, you'll probably use them most of the time, so it's not too big of a deal. And then you have carbon and alloy. So that's the two types of material that the poles use. So carbon being the lighter weight version, it can be a little bit more brittle, but it's very, very lightweight. That's nice. And then alloy, which is also lightweight, but slightly heavier. But yeah, can be a little bit more durable. It tends to bend rather than break. So Black Diamond and Compodel are the two bivouac options that we have. And lastly, we have the layering system. What is the layering system? So the layering system is about temperature control. This is a topic that can go really, really deep. There's a lot of technology and innovation that goes into the layering system at the moment. But I'll try to keep it simple. Basically, with the layering system, it's what you're trying to accomplish is you're trying to keep your body at the optimal temperature all the time. So rain, hail, or shine, you want to have your body at the temperature that's comfortable. And you want to cater that to your activity as well. So the first layer we have on the layering system is your base layer. So we're going to break it down to three basic things: your base layer, your mid layer, and your shell layer. The first one is your base layer. You can have more or less, but these are the three basics. So your base layer needs to be lightweight, or tends to be lightweight unless you're in very cold climates. Moisture wicking, that's really important. It basically draws the moisture off your body, and then you get what's called moisture dispersion, which is when the base layer disperses the moisture across your body, and that allows it to dry really, really quickly. And what that does is, moisture is a really inefficient thing for your body to heat. So if you get a lot of moisture build up on your body, then you can get exposure. So if the weather turns nasty, then the weather tends to cool the water down and your body struggles to heat that up. So you really want something that's going to wick moisture, disperse it, and dry really quickly. Things like polyester blends or wool as well sometimes works really, really well. I know wool's really popular. Polyester tends to work as good as wool, but it does dry a lot quicker, so that's nice. However, it does smell really bad again, similar to socks. So a lot of the hardcore people out there might not care about the smell. They might go straight for the synthetic blends and everyone else be damned. But the wool versions tend to smell quite nice. Well, they don't smell as bad over a long period of time, so that's quite nice as well. I personally use a synthetic blend. I just find I enjoy it drying quickly. So they also tend to offer you a bit of sun protection. And some of the layers will advertise having a certain amount of sun protection. That's okay. If a layer doesn't advertise having sun protection, it doesn't mean that it doesn't protect you from the sun necessarily. With thicker materials, say like a rain jacket, they don't need to advertise sun protection because it's going to block all the sun. But yeah, so some of those thinner layers, if they're really lightweight, they'll have a sun protection rating on them. The really lightweight layers are really, really good in summer. They tend to keep you cooler and they block a lot of the sunlight, which is nice. So again, wool versus synthetic is what I just talked about. Wool being smelling really nice, stays warm, about 80%, retains about 80% of its heat when it's wet, and synthetic drying a lot quicker, working as good as wool, but smelling terrible. So bivouac options, we have the Outdoor Research Eco Series, which is what you see in this picture here. That's a really nice, lightweight, quite stretchy, dries really quickly. layer. Earthsea Sky does some really good layers. It's a New Zealand company. Patagonia has the Patagonia Capline, which is similar to the Eco series. It's quite lightweight. And Icebreaker as well, that they do really good base layers. They have a range of different weights and different constructions and things like that. And they'll obviously smell good. And Icebreaker is a nice New Zealand brand as well. So your mid layer, so this is the layer that's going to keep you warm. So there's a load of variations in mid layers. It really is personal preference with the mid layers. I know during this last year's event that the weather wasn't too bad. I think it was drizzly a little bit for a while. So you may not need a super warm mid layer. You might not need something that's huge and bulky, but you definitely will want to take something that's going to keep you warm, especially when it gets a bit darker, or if the wind picks up a little bit. You want to cater your mid layer to your weather a lot, and so you want to be keeping an eye on the weather before you go. Insulating. So a lot of mid layers are similar to like a puffer jacket, where they have insulation in between two layers of fabric. There's a lot of technical mid layers out there like that. What I would say is you don't have to go for a really thick insulating layer like that, like a puffer or something like that. You don't have to go with something like that. Something simple like a polar fleece tends to keep you really warm. And I've heard of other staff members using simple polar fleeces like this North Face one that we do called the Glacier. And they have similar aspects to the base layers, where they have really good moisture control. So they'll pull the moisture off your base layer and put it onto the mid layer, which then disperses it into the air because it can dry. So breathability is key, and moisture control is really, really key. You don't want to be using stuff that's going to block all the moisture inside your body or trap all the moisture inside your body, because it won't have anywhere to escape. Even if your base layer is really good and you put something on the mid layer that's not so good, it's going to trap it all in. You really need the full system to work properly. It doesn't have to be fancy, it just has to work. So materials, synthetic, down, or wool. So this is a big one. In New Zealand, we really, really like our down jackets. However, down jackets during high output activities or sports and things like that, they tend to not work super well. The moisture actually really reduces the effectiveness of down feathers. So I would avoid using down. I would stick with a synthetic insulation if you're wanting to use an insulated jacket if it's going to be really cold, because the synthetic insulation will have the same properties as we talked about earlier with the moisture control and breathability. And the down jackets, they tend to keep you really warm when you're still, but when you're moving and you're sweating a lot, they won't be as effective, and they can be quite clammy. Wool will also work. Like a wool layer that's similar to a fleece will work really well. There is wool insulated jackets which have, again, that the two layers of fabric with the insulation on the inside, but they tend to be quite heavy. So lightweight is a good theme to stick to for a walk like Oxfam. So synthetic is the way to go, or like a thinner wool mid layer like a fleece. So I didn't list any options here because there's so many variations that you can go with that it's really, really tricky to list something. And it really depends on what you're already using as your base layer. You might be using a slightly heavier base layer and you want to go with a slightly thinner mid layer, things like that. And finally, we have the shell layer. So this is your third layer. So this layer is your weather protection. This is what's going to keep the wind off you and the water off you. So there is shell layers that aren't waterproof. In places like New Zealand, we tend to want to have a waterproof layer. We get quite a lot of rain. In the US, sometimes they will just use a windproof layer, but in New Zealand, it's really important that we have the waterproofing. And it has to be seam sealed. I believe it has to be seam sealed in the gear checklist, which means that it's fully waterproof. So that's really important. So you can use that as an you can use this as an emergency layer. It may never rain, but if you get injured and you're maybe further away from help than you would like, you might have to sit down for a couple of hours and wait it out. So having this layer will stop you getting wet if it starts to rain, or the wind really can rip through you. So that layer will stop the wind from cooling you down a lot. Breathability is a factor in rain jackets, despite what people might think. Rain jackets aren't just like a plastic bag. You don't want a rain jacket to trap the moisture inside like your other layers. You want it to be breathable, because then it's going to allow that moisture to escape. So there is a lot of technology going into rain jackets and how they can be more breathable these days. The main thing is it has some level of breathability. It doesn't have to be super fancy, as long as it allows the moisture to escape on some level. And a lot of jackets will have maybe pit zips underneath, which can help quite a lot if they're not a super breathable material. So weights, we have different, obviously varying weights and constructions with rain jackets. What people tend to go with on endurance-based events is something that's really lightweight, especially if they're looking at the weather and it looks like it's going to be okay. Then they want something lightweight that they don't have to carry all this extra bulk with them going around the walk. They can be a little bit less durable. That's the only thing. So if you're wanting to use that rain jacket in the future, maybe for hiking, then you want to go with something that's a little bit heavier maybe. However, the lighter weight versions are obviously going to be easier to walk in. The constructions, so there is multiple ways of jackets being constructed. People tend to go with a 3-layer rain jacket, and that sounds confusing because I'm talking about a three-layering system. But in a rain jacket, you have different layers of fabric, and a 3-layer rain jacket tends to be more durable than, say, a 2-layer rain jacket. And the reason being, a 3-layer rain jacket has another piece of material that gets put onto the waterproof membrane, and that stops that waterproof membrane from getting damaged as quickly. So a 3-layer rain jacket will last a bit longer. Again, if you're wanting to use it for hiking and things like that afterward, and you're going to be wearing a pack, you want something a little bit maybe heavier, or you definitely want to go with that 3-layer. However, the 2-layer rain jackets are a lot lighter. And so if you're going for a rain jacket that's you're going to have to carry around a lot, maybe you're just an adventure racer or something like that, you want to go with a lightweight rain jacket. So a couple of lightweight options that we do at Bivouac is the Outdoor Research Helium and the Innovate Storm Shell. And there are some others at Bivouac as well, but these are two that kind of stick out to me as a lightweight rain jacket. If the weather looks like it's going to be terrible, then a heavier weight jacket is often more waterproof. So that's something to consider also. You might want to go with a heavier weight rain jacket if the weather is going to be terrible. The thinner rain jackets don't tend to stay waterproof as long as the heavier weight rain jackets. So that's pretty much all the tips I have. Here's a nice picture of me enjoying the outdoors in the Craigieburn Range before winter. So to wrap everything up, try to think about your own gear and if there's anything you should maybe replace or invest in. Definitely make your way into Bivouac if you'd like some knowledge from our well-informed staff members. Most of us are pretty enthusiastic about the gear and outdoors, so we'd love to give you guys a hand.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Liam. And for everyone who maybe has some more questions specifically about gear for Oxfam Trailwalker, Bivouac Outdoor have put together a gear list, a suggested gear list, which also includes the mandatory gear you need to be carrying with you on the Oxfam Trailwalker Trail. And that can be found online, the same place as our training plans. And don't forget as well that Bivouac Outdoor offer 15% off anything of the recommended retail price. And then we'll donate 10% of what you spend back to your team fundraising page. So they're really a generous organisation and a fantastic and valued sponsor for us. So thank you, Liam, and thank you, Bivouac. All right, well, now we'll be moving on to the questions, and the chat has been blowing up with some questions. So what we'll do is I'll read them out for any questions directed to Marie, Liam, or myself, and Vanessa is frantically trying to answer them on the chat directly if we can't get them to you that quickly. However, kicking straight off with a question for Marie, in fact, someone has asked, is running good preparation for walking?
Can you repeat that for me, please?
Yep, absolutely. Is running good preparation for walking?
Oh, is running good preparation for walking?
Yeah.
So don't fall into that trap. Running is very complementary to walking, but it's, you know, walking is a different, you do use different muscles, it's a different gait. So you, even though it's complementary, and absolutely do both during your training, make sure the longer walking sessions are just that. So you go out and you power hike and you use your poles and get into that kind of a groove, because in the event you're doing, most of it is going to be walking, right? So you want to make sure that you can last that amount of time actually walking. Yeah, hope that helps.
Brilliant, thank you. And a question for Liam. Is it 1 or 2 walking poles?
That's a very good question. I didn't cover that. So it tends to be exponentially better to use 2 walking poles. If you use 1 walking pole, you tend to get 30% of the benefit, as if you use 2 walking poles, you get 100% of the benefit, if that makes sense. So yeah, 2 walking poles is better. 1's still going to be better than none.
Brilliant. And a very technical question from Luella. Does the waterproof membrane wear off for coats? And if so, how might we re-waterproof our coats? Is it like with a tent?
Right, yeah, so yeah, it gets very technical. So the waterproof membrane that's inside your jacket can wear off, especially if you're wearing a pack. It can rub the membrane on the inside of the jacket, and then that will wear it off. A lot of the more cheaply made rain jackets will have different kind of glues and things they use. So you can get issues with lamination. So where the membrane actually delaminates from the outside of the jacket. So there is ways that it can wear off. With that third internal layer inside the jacket, it will counter that a lot better. It also stops like oils from your skin getting into the membrane, which is one of the biggest things that damages your jacket, is actually oils in your skin. So washing your jacket using like a tech wash from Nick Wax will help a lot with contamination, which is really important. And in terms of re-waterproofing your jacket, if your membrane's worn off, it's probably time to get a new jacket. You can't really do much. You can't really spray a membrane or anything back on your jacket. However, if the chemical coating on the outside of your jacket has worn off, which is another thing entirely, it's called a DWR coating, a durable water repellency. You can reproof that. So what happens is when you buy a rain jacket new, it has this DWR coating on the outside of it, and that causes the water to bead on your jacket. You'll see the water kind of turn into little balls on your jacket, and you can almost just flick it off your jacket and it falls off. So that beading is due to the durable water repellency. And so you can reapply the water repellency onto your jacket. Usually you won't have to do that for around, I mean, it totally depends on how often you use your jacket, but maybe 6 months. If you're using it more often, maybe like a month, every month, but you'll notice when that wears off because it'll stop beading on your jacket.
Brilliant, thank you. Table tennising it back to Marie. What distances should we be covering in training at this stage?
Oh, at this stage, well, it depends obviously what, you know, if you're doing the 50 or the 100, but you want to start off small and just building consistency really. So like I mentioned in my chat, to start where you are at now. So if you're going out a couple of times a week, try and increase that to 3 times a week, and then further down the track, you know, 4 times a week, and then slowly increasing that longer weekend walking session. And you just want to be really mindful of how you build that up. For your peak walk, for example, which is a question I get asked a lot, which is the biggest walk that you'll do in your training. It's normally done probably 2 to 3 weeks before the actual event. You want to go to 50 to 60% of the total distance that you're covering. So for the 100K walk, you want to be covering about 50 to 60K max in your biggest training session. But just a note on that, that can be split up and done in 2 sessions or 2 days. So it helps to prevent injury and loading too much. So just make sure, when it gets to the point of you doing your peak walk, that you really look at how far you come now in all your training and what would be suitable. And I'm always here if anyone wants to ask what that might look like for them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marie. Well, recognising that it's 8:03, we've had an information-packed hour. So for everybody who's joined us, thank you so much. There are a few questions still trickling through the chat. I see that Vanessa's kindly answering them for us. If anybody does have any burning questions for Liam or Marie, please either frantically type them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself briefly to ask your question, and we'll take a few more. And just to remind everyone that this information session is recorded and we'll be posting it on our website as well. So not all of the key information is lost. It will be ready for you to watch over and over again at your leisure later. All right. Well, nothing else has come through, so fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best with your training over the next couple of months. We'll obviously stay in touch with more developments for the event as they progress, especially when it comes to alert levels. But as I said, we've got our fundraising training session in a couple of weeks' time, and then an event weekend expectations as well, which go into a bit more detail about the event and the nitty-gritty for Oxfam Trailwalker in a few months. So as I said, thank you again. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Stay safe and give us a call or an email if you need anything, and we'll always be able to check in with Liam and Marie if there's any questions that come through later.